What if I told you Florida has been quietly deleting towns for over 100 years and almost nobody talks about it? Not one or two towns. 13 of them. Gone. Some hit by storms so violent the ground itself changed shape. Some swallowed by swamps the second industry packed up and left. Some burned, some flooded. And the wildest part is that a few of them were massive, like real infrastructure, real populations, real ambition. Florida looked at all of that and said, nope, we're going through every single one. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1, St. Joseph. So let's start with the biggest one, because St. Joseph was actually the largest city in Florida. Not a fishing village, not a trading post. A real city with a working port, a newspaper, and enough political weight that Florida held its very first constitutional convention there in the 1830s. Around 6,000 people lived there. That was massive for Florida back then. But here's what nobody tells you. Yellow fever hit first, tearing through the population so fast people could barely keep up with the dead. And then, while the town was already on its knees, a Category 4 hurricane showed up in 1841 and physically moved the coastline. Number 2. Brewster, Polk County. A full company town, built from nothing by a phosphate mining operation. We're talking a school, a company store, worker housing, the whole thing. Amalgamated Phosphate put it up. American Cyanamid eventually took it over, and at its peak, hundreds of workers lived and worked there. But here's what nobody tells you. Brewster was completely segregated. Black workers and white workers lived in separate sections, used separate facilities, and got paid on separate scales. 2 communities, 1 town, 0 equality. And when the phosphate deposit ran dry and the company shut everything down in the 1960s, 1 smokestack. That's literally all that's left. Sitting on private property you can't even access. Number 3. Ellaville. Ellaville had a real reason to exist. The Suwannee River. Timber, turpentine, water transport. In the late 1800s, this place was booming because those longleaf pine forests were basically printing money. But here's the thing about building a whole town around a forest. Forests run out, and the turpentine industry didn't manage anything. They just bled the trees dry, cut faces into the bark, drained the resin, and when there was nothing left, they left too. And the workers, mostly black men locked into debt peonage that was basically forced labor. They had nothing when it ended either. The swamp didn't wait around. Spanish moss, cypress, thick undergrowth, all of it came roaring back the second the maintenance stopped. There's an old cemetery still out there near the river, a few crumbling remnants. But the jungle has won that argument completely. Number 4, Fort Dade. Fort Dade was a real U.S. military base. Gun batteries, barracks, a lighthouse, full garrison. The Army built it on Egmont Key, a small island at the mouth of Tampa Bay, right after the Spanish-American War. Serious operation, serious infrastructure. But here's the catch. The island didn't care. Egmont Key has been eroding for over a century, and the Gulf has been slowly eating every single thing the Army built there. You can actually visit by boat right now and walk around. Brick gun batteries half buried in sand. Walls sticking out of the water at low tide. Officer housing getting swallowed by roots and salt air. The military picked that spot for its position. The ocean is using that exact position to demolish it. Number 5, Croom. Croom existed because a railroad showed up. That's it. Turpentine operations, a post office, some basic commerce. All of it built around the assumption that the trains would keep coming. Sounds stable, right? But here's the catch. Railroad companies didn't care about Croom. Some guys in an office somewhere ran the numbers, rerouted the line, and that was it. No trains, no reason to stay. The whole town evaporated almost immediately. And the wild part? You can go there right now. It's inside the Withlacoochee State Forest. People mountain bike through it every weekend. They're literally riding through a ghost town and have absolutely no idea. Number 6, Yukon. Yukon, Florida. It shows up on old Hillsborough County maps. It had a post office. People lived there. But it never had a real downtown, never had a real identity. It was basically just a name on a page. And here's the thing. That was enough to make it a ghost town when the name stopped being used. This is actually how land speculators and railroad companies operated all over Florida. Put a name on a map, and suddenly the land looks developed, looks valuable. The name was the product. The actual place was almost beside the point. Yukon existed as a label. It disappeared as a label. Nothing physical marked the difference. Number 7. Amelia City. Amelia City was on Amelia Island before Fernandina Beach was even a thing. Fishing, farming, slow coastal life. It actually had something real going for it. But here's what nobody tells you about barrier islands. They move. Not as a metaphor. They literally migrate. Sand shifts, inlets open up, storm surges rewrite the shoreline. The ocean had a prior claim on that land and eventually came to collect. Every storm season made it worse. The flooding got heavier, the ground got less reliable, and people just did the math and headed north toward Fernandina Beach, where the ground wasn't actively trying to leave. Nothing marks where Amelia City stood. The island kept moving without it. Number 8. Jaybird Springs. Before Disney, before the beach condos, before any of that. Florida's big tourist draw was springs. Clear, cold water bubbling straight up from the aquifer surrounded by forest. And Jaybird Springs in Alachua County had a whole resort built around exactly that. But here's the catch. A spring isn't an amenity. It's an ecosystem. And ecosystems don't care about your business model. When the resort economy dried up and the tourist dollars moved toward the coasts, maintenance stopped. That was all the swamp needed. The vegetation came back so hard and so fast it's almost aggressive. Overgrown structures, dense walls of growth, and that spring still flowing underneath all of it like nothing happened. Number 9, Narcoosea. So picture this. A group of British guys show up to Osceola County in the 1880s with money, ambition, and a plan to basically rebuild English country life in subtropical Florida. Cricket fields, citrus farms, the whole thing, right next to Lake Runnymede. Land promoters sold them on the dream, and honestly, you can't fully blame the settlers. They just had no idea what Florida actually was. Then the Great Freeze of 1894 to 95 hit and killed millions of citrus trees across central Florida overnight. Crops they'd crossed an ocean to grow, gone. A place called Narcoosea still exists today, but it's a suburb now. The British colony? Completely frozen out, literally. Number 10. Eau Gallie Ghost District. Eau Gallie wasn't wiped out by a storm. It got absorbed. It was a real, independent city on Florida's Space Coast with its own downtown, its own mayor, its own identity going back to the 1880s. Then in 1969, Melbourne annexed it, and that was basically that. Annexation sounds boring, but what it actually meant was that Eau Gallie's downtown got deprioritized overnight. Investment went to Melbourne. Buildings aged out. The whole historic core slowly turned into a ghost district sitting inside a living city. You can eat at a restaurant there right now and have zero idea you're sitting inside what used to be a completely separate city. That's a weird kind of haunting. Number 11, Genoa. Genoa, Citrus County. Small community, real people, real homes. And then the federal government decided a canal needed to go right through it. The Cross-Florida Barge Canal was supposed to connect the Gulf to the Atlantic, cutting straight across the state. The government was all in. Communities in the path didn't really get a vote. Genoa got displaced, the land got taken, and the Ocklawaha River Valley got partially flooded to create the Rodman Reservoir. Number 12, Picnic. Picnic, Florida. That's the actual name. Hillsborough County, late 1800s. A post office, some farms, a handful of people trying to make something work. And then the roads came. Not through Picnic, around it. When the highways developed and bypassed these little agricultural communities, that was basically a death sentence. No road meant no commerce. No commerce meant no reason to stay. Here's the thing, there was no disaster. No hurricane, no company pulling out, no government canal. Picnic just got outcompeted by everywhere else and quietly stopped existing. It's like a small business that closes because a mall opened down the road. Number 13, Eldred. Eldred, Martin County. A black community built around the St. Lucie River. Homes, churches, real roots. And in the Jim Crow South, building something that's stable meant fighting the entire system around you just to exist. Then the Army Corps of Engineers showed up. The Central and Southern Florida Project launched in the late 1940s and reshaped millions of acres of land and water across South Florida. The flooding patterns changed. The land use changed. And Eldred's foundation just got pulled out from under it. Nobody asked. Nobody had to. 13 towns. Storms, swamps, freezes, bad policy, exhausted resources. Florida has been running a slow eviction process for over 100 years, and the people at the theme parks and the beaches have absolutely no idea. Which town hit hardest? Drop it in the comments, because we've barely scratched the surface.